Hello, YouTube coin collectors and stackers. Today we're going to be looking at Libertads and other Mexican coins, other Mexican silver coins. We're going to be learning to identify the four types of Libertads since they came out in 1982. And let's start by looking at what is a Libertad. So here's a Type 4 from 2014. And the obverse is the front, or the front of the coin is actually this side. A lot of people get it backwards, but it's the side with the Mexican coat of arms. This particular obverse has all the various Mexican coats of arms throughout the years, and I think it's really cool. And it made its debut, this particular obverse made its debut on the larger coins, which we'll see before they work their way down to the 1 ounce coin. And on the reverse, or rear of the coin, we have Winged Liberty here. And behind her, we see those two mountains. Those are actually volcanoes. I believe they're pronounced Ixtacoatl and Papado Capetal, excuse me. And we see her there. That's a statue. It's a statue of victory in Mexico City. And we have the Mexican mint mark right there for Casa de Monedas, the oldest mint in the Western Hemisphere. And as always, we're going to see as we look across the history of these coins, we have this thing that says 1 unza, 1 ounce, plata pura, pure silver, 2014 ley 0.999, or by law 3 nines fine silver. So let's go back a little bit in time before we got to any kind of Libertads, and we can look at the inspiration for the Libertad, which is this 1921 Dos Pesos coin. You'll notice that it has some things in common. It has a winged victory here, the statue from Mexico City. And as we see the Type 1, you're going to see it's very similar in the design on the Type 1. We also see that it says 24 grams of pure silver. And on the reverse, we have, the obverse. It's easy to mix them up. We have the Mexican coat of arms and the year in Latin down below, 1921, and Estados Unidos Mexicanos. And this essentially was the coin that was resurrected for the Libertad in 1982, or a version of this. But let's go back further in time to silver coins in general and the inspiration for silver coins just across the board. And I could take you back to, say, this 8 reales coin from 1805, featuring King Carlos IV. And these are called pillar dollars. Let me flip it over here, because those are the pillars of Hercules with the imperial Spanish or royal Spanish shield. You can see that this one was made again all the way back in 1805 in Casa de Monedas. That's the O and the M. It's 8 reales. And this was an inspiration for our first dollars in the United States. So the peace dollar, the Morgan dollar, the seeded dollars, the flowing hair dollars were all inspired by this. And Thomas Jefferson used this as an example of the coin that we wanted to represent or model our coins after. Because this coin was the coin that was the essentially world currency at the time. Silver was the metal that was considered to be like the monetary metal in Asia. So these coins circulated widely in Asia. And you can see that this example from 1805, we got a clean one from 1805, and we have one that's got what's called chop marks on it. So the one with the chop marks on it actually went to Asia, and it traversed all over China and the South Pacific. And as it did, it was hit with these stamps that gave it these chop marks. The thought behind it was if you could break the skin of the coin, you'd be able to see if there was a base metal like copper underneath it. But once these were stamped, they could be used in the ports where they had been stamped and cleared. And sometimes the chop marks even got on the back if they ran out of space on the front. So these are pillar dollars. And again, those were the inspiration for our dollars. And you'll notice the difference between, say, a pillar dollar and a Libertad is the Libertad has no denomination on it. So if we were to look at a Libertad again, let's look at a Type 1 this time, and look at it next to the 1922, and you'll see how similar they are. Now there's some major differences. Look at the difference in the diameter for one. Large difference in diameter. The Libertad is much thicker. This, in fact, is a Type 2. We're going to get into how to tell the difference in a minute. The other thing we noticed that this one says Dos Pesos, and this one just says un onza, or 1 ounce. So there's no denomination on this one, and yet on this one there is. And that's a major difference. And so where do we see in Mexican coins the real first instance where they're making coins that are silver, say bullion coins, and they're not actually denominated? And that would be this guy right here. Oh, I'm sorry. I can say that, and then it says 5 pesos on it. But this is actually considered a bullion coin, and it's one of these coins that came out. This is Cuauhtemoc. He was the last Aztec emperor, and he's featured on this coin as well as on the obverse, the Mexican coat of arms. But this is another example of a coin where we have this large silver coin circulating. And the coin that I meant to grab to show you the example of the first coin where we see no denomination would be this 1949 1-ounce coin. And this one came out, of course, a couple years after the Cuauhtemoc coin. And we see right here, una onza troy equals 480 granos del plata pure. So it's 480 grains of pure silver. It's 1 ounce of silver. And you can see right there, it's lei 0.925. So this is actually sterling silver, 92.5%. It's got the scales on there. Tells you have the 33.625 grams. And one of the things that people love about this coin is the old style screw press. So that device in the middle there, below where the mint mark is for Casa de Moneda, is the way they used to make coins. They would take that screw press here, and they'd either twist it with horses, or they'd have a couple of burly guys twisting this up, and they'd put the little planchet down here, and then all the weight would drop and strike the coin. So this is a perennial favorite. And this coin was really the first that had this idea of it's a silver coin and it's not denominated. And it was the only coin of its type for a while. Throughout the 1950s, we had other types of large silver coins, like this one, featuring Hidalgo in front of the church at Dolores, where he did his major speech to incite the Mexican Revolution. And this one's denominated, 5 pesos. And we have other ones throughout the way. One of my favorites, this is a 1-year coin here. This is commemorating the Southern Railroad when that came out in the early 1950s. And look at the detail on that. It's unbelievable. I like coins with trains on them. I think this is probably the best one ever made. You got look at all the detail on the sun. You can see right there, 1950 is on the rising sun right there. Super cool coin, and as always, the obverse. And that is pretty much the case. Even if I go back a long way in history to say this large silver coin from 1871, you'll see it says it's 90% silver there, 1 peso, and there on the obverse is the coat of arms all the way back in 1871. So these large coins that preceded the Libertad had been around for quite a long time, and they all get there, whether it's the 8 reales coins we looked at earlier, or some of the other ones, or our Morgan dollars, or seated dollars, or flowing hair dollars. They all get their inspiration from what was called a taler. And here's a taler from 1618, believe it or not, that I picked up, I guess about a year ago in a coin shop. It's not in the best condition, but I thought it was super cool for what it is and how old it is. But they all get their inspiration from the taler, which is what this is. So let's try to jump ahead back to the Libertads themselves. So one of the things we have with Libertads is just very interesting. Again, they're not denominated, but they also come in all kinds of sizes. So starting all the way down at 1/20th of a troy ounce, we got that little lady there. And we go up to a tenth, then a quarter, then a half, then the full troy ounce. And one of the things we'll look at on the back, or the obverse rather, and of course it's confusing, right? Because this is what's featured. This is the beautiful winged Liberty here with the volcanoes, but this is the obverse. So we'll see the obverse on this one. So the year, this is 2023, and this is a 2023 circulated set from Banco de Mexico. And we see the version here with all of the various coats of arms. Then we see, as we get to the smaller denominations, we have a single coat of arms there, and that plays out all the way through. So let's start with the difference between a type 4, which is what this is. So the reverse is the same on the type 4, and the type 3 but the obverse is different. And I don't have, unfortunately, I don't have a type 3 here. I'm still searching for one. But the type 3 in the 1 ounce would have this obverse with just the single coat of arms. And then this was changed, I believe, in the late 90s, early 2000s, to the other one. So, but this is what a type 4 looks like, and the type 3 is exactly the same, except it has that reverse. So then what's the difference between a type 3 and a type 2? Well, we'll get to that in a moment, but we have all of our denominations. You would think it would stop there, right? So we have 5 different sizes, but it doesn't stop at 5. We can go up to the 2 ounce. 2 unzas. There's a 2023 2 ounce. So a little toning on the wreath there around the eagle. And we can even get to a 5 ounce, this massive 5 ounce coin. And the thing about these is we can look at how chesty Winged Liberty gets as we get on these larger format coins. This is 5 unzas there. And you can just see how massive they get if I were just going to put them in my hands next to each other. 1, 2, and 5. It's just pretty wild. Of course, the 5 is great. And then there's a kilo above that that's even bigger. I do not own a kilo, but there's a kilo above that. So let's go back in time even further. And let's go back to, we'll grab a type 3 here. Oh, I'm sorry, type 4. We'll grab this type 4. And we'll go from a type 4 to a type, checking the edge, a type 2. So we'll see some differences here. One between is the diameter. We also notice on the type 2 that Winged Victory matches pretty close to the Winged Victory on this 1921 dos pesos. Not exactly, but close as far as the way she's facing and so forth, holding that wreath above her head and the broken chains in her hand. We have the size. Look at the diameter difference. And then where do we make up for the 1 ounce? It would be in the thickness. So look at how much thicker the type 2 is than the type 4. And the type 3 would have this reverse on it. So essentially, if you think about this coin getting flattened out in type 3, going from this to this as far as the Winged Liberty, and then keeping the reverse but getting bigger. I'm sorry, the obverse, keeping the obverse but getting bigger. So moving back in time further from a type 2 to a type 1. So here's a type 2 and here's a type 1. And I want you just to take a close look at Liberty and the words around her. We can see that Winged Victory is a little different. But mainly what we're going to look at is the words unza and pura plata, and look at how the lettering goes. The capital, really big P and L in the capital, but small a. We come over here and we notice all the letters are the same size and font. We have the unza here, 1 unza, all lowercase, and here we have that strange stylistic font. I don't want to say strange, I think it's kind of cool, but this stylistic font. The other major difference between these two is, again, the edge. So looking at the edges of these, we're going to see that the type 1 has this beautiful lettered edge, and the type 2 has a milled edge or reeded edge in this case. But otherwise, other than the lettering and the edge, they are same diameter, same thickness, same obverse with the eagle there, or a very similar obverse. Yeah, it looks like to be the same obverse. And so that's essentially your differences. So again, the type 1 is lettered edge, is the easiest way to tell. It's the only one with a lettered edge. The type 2 loses the letter edge, but otherwise looks very similar to the type 1, except for the lettering there, as I pointed out. The type 3 and 4, we get a much larger diameter, but they're thinner. And the type 3 has this reverse on it with the obverse of this. So there are your 4 basic types of Libertads. We can look at some other pretty ones I have here. You know, so you have, of course, you have your proof sets, and just that's a beautiful deep cameo proof there, 1 ounce. And these also come in the larger sizes. And the mintages on these get pretty crazy. If if you start looking at some of these proof mintages, they can literally get down to like a couple hundred, particularly for these large format 5-ounces. It's not unusual for these to get under 1,000. I think I even saw one year they were like 250 of these made, which can get the premiums on them quite high. So speaking of premiums, we have a couple of years and a couple of times where you get major premiums. So Libertads always have a premium on them all the time over other 1-ounce silver bullion coins, compared to an American Silver Eagle, certainly compared to a Maple or a Britannia or a Kangaroo or a Philharmonic or a Krugerrand, to name a few. Pandas tend to have higher premiums, but the Libertads are just hot. The Casa de Moneda mints only about 1% of the Libertads that the U.S. Mint makes in Silver Eagles. So that's a major difference. So they're already scarcer. If you ever go into a coin shop and you see these there, if you go back the next day, they're gone. They are gone. People love these. And it's hard not to love them. They're such beautiful coins. Stunning. This came out of a bankroll. And they're just stunning coins. They sell fast. And they're getting more and more popular. And of course, as they get more popular, they get more expensive. So some of them, like this Type 2, which purports to have... Oh, that's not the type, sorry. Where did I put it? It is up here. Nope, I'm looking for it. Oh, this one. Sorry, I can't even tell the difference myself. So, no, that's a Type 1. This is a Type 2. All right, so this Type 2 from 1992, this was the highest mintage according to the records, over 2 million. So it's the highest mintage ever. But you're going to pay a premium for any Libertad from the 1990s. The mintages for some years get quite low, in fact. And even in the 80s, you're going to pay a premium for some. But you'll find that if you go to a coin shop, you're going to see stuff like 83, 85, 80, 84. Those are pretty common. You're going to see the 90s stuff a lot less. And then you're going to see, of course, the newer stuff like this 2019, 2023, 2010, that kind of stuff as well. These kind of coins carry a, let's just say, for sake of argument, a 25% premium over the cost of silver. You start to get into some of these. These can cost, just in regular circulated condition, non-proof. These can be 2x whatever the melt is on silver. We start to get into the proofs, particularly proofs from some of the years where they made fewer of them, and they can get up well over $100. Proof set like this is closing in on $200. Even a mint set like this is well over $100. So these always carry a big premium on them. You know, you're getting 5 ounces of silver here. You're probably going to pay over $200 for this. And again, you know, if you look at the mintages, you'll see why. They don't make a lot of these 5-ounce formats, and the kilos are even less. So again, those get down even into a couple hundred. Well, let me know what you think about Libertads in this video. And oh my God, I almost forgot one of my favorite Mexican coins of all time, the caballito. And we'll go out kind of looking at this beauty on the way out. So again, as always, please like. Don't forget to subscribe. That really helps us out here, gets more content out, and we can share more of these beautiful coins that we collect and feature various collections over time. Thanks as always, and happy collecting.